Hello and welcome. It is All for United. We are back once again for another Saturday night live. And we've got the wind chime music going on as well, which is great. So I'm sure that'll be a feature of the evening. But before we kick off, we'd just like to point out a little incident that happened this morning, which I have to say bamboozled me somewhat. As you know, we put out a tweet, as we have done for the whole of this week, talking about keep, loan, sell. Everybody having their opinion on the team. And as a part of that, we wanted to check the opinions of fans to see it will help to inform our discussion as we pick our 11 of the season. That's the whole point. We wanted to see whether or not what we were going with agrees with what you guys thought. We tried to do exactly the same thing also with regards to Ten Hag. Now, I know fully that the wording that was used has caused some drama among some of you, but I need to make a little point from our point of view. There was a few bits of pushback from that, and this is very much me, Barry speaking. Not all for United, not Connor, not John, not Stu. This is just me. I very rarely use this as a mouthpiece. But as Voltaire once said, I may disagree with your opinion, but I will fight to the death for you to have the right to say it. All for United, as far as I was concerned, when we first brought it all to light, was for the fans to have their voice. And the pure purpose of what we try and do week in, week out is to give you the chance to put your voice forward. And that is what this channel is there for. I'm going to let you into a little secret. I've never really been into fan cams. The idea of people on YouTube and giving their opinions, it's never really one for me. However, we took it on purely because we felt this was something that you guys wanted and that you guys would have the opportunity to put your opinion across. We will continue here at Wolf United doing that, certainly for as long as I'm involved, but it was never, ever meant to antagonise people. The wording might have antagonised you, but genuinely, all we wanted was to check the swell of support for Erik Ten Hag, which I'm sure will be mirrored by these two lovely gentlemen who we have got joining us. So, the sun is shining, just about-ish, even though it's nearly night time. And if we take a little look at BT Sport, 30-odd minutes in, it's still 0-0 between City and Inter. So, at the moment, everything's good to smile about. So, with that in mind, Johnny K and Stu are here with us to go through our team of the season. How are you both doing, lads?
Yeah, we're all very good. Believe De Bruyne might be coming off, so
he's injured. Got a hammy, hasn't he? Got a hammy. Yeah.
So, so now all good. Apologies for missing last week, but yeah, finds me fresh, and they're looking forward to the summer now.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, looking forward to the summer. Got a bit of training to do. I've come out of retirement to sign for Tipton Town Vets, so I shall be donning the pegs again. Although disaster has befallen me. My Adidas World Cups, which have entered their 29th year this year, have finally given up the ghost. It's all over for the World Cups. I've got to place them to bed. But don't worry, a new pair of World Cups will be adorning these feet very soon.
Well, I'll tell you what, everyone's asleep better tonight, Stu.
It's heartbreaking. World Cups, the greatest boots ever, apart from the Copa Mundials. They're both, the same. Great boots. So, a new pair of World Cups. I haven't told the wife yet. She doesn't know, so we shall.
Cracking stuff. Well, like I said, our job today is quite simply to come up with the team of the season. Which 11 do we think would be the All for United best 11? The 11 players who have performed the best this season. We're not going to go through people's teams individually. We're going to go through it sort of positions by positions, a bit like we did with the tweets. And whilst we do, we'll obviously also reference the results of all of the polls that we ran during the week. So we're going to kick off with what I feel like should probably be the easiest position of them all, purely because he's probably the only player who's played in that position, really, with the exception of a couple. And that is, of course, our goalkeeper, Dave. Dave saves, and Dave, of course, with the ridiculous amount of clean sheets. I'm going to assume we would have all put David De Gea in our first 11. Regardless of our thoughts for next season, I'm going to assume he's in there. Yeah. Would that be the case for you, John?
Yeah, I think it has to be. I mean, Heaton played a game, Dubravka played a couple, and obviously Dyer's had a bit of a mixed season. He's made errors leading to goals and all that, but of course he got the Golden Glove, most clean sheets, and I think at home this season I think we only conceded 9 or 10 goals at home in the league, which is, obviously very impressive. Was away from home, which was the big issue. But yeah, I don't think you can argue with De Gea.
Would that be the same for you, Stu?
Yeah, I mean, De Gea's got to get it. I mean, he's had such a mixed season. Started off pretty poorly. Then he had this purple patch where he was dominating his area. He was, almost sweeping up on occasions. He became that goalkeeper that we required, that could fill the gap between, the centre halves and an oncoming attacker. And then all of a sudden he regressed back into his normal fragile state. Why he did that, I don't know. Whether he became too comfortable or whether the loss of Martinez was a big thing for him psychologically. Nobody really knows. Oh, and also Casemiro at times throughout the season. But he can pinpoint to every one of us that criticise him that, I got the Golden Glove. I kept the most clean sheets in the Premier League, so stuff you. And he's well within his rights to do that, and we should take that on board. But look, he's really the only one that's played. I don't know why we bothered bringing in Butland. It seemed to be, I know he was injured for 90% of his stay, but it appeared to be a very strange signing. Well, obviously, Dubravka had to go back to Newcastle. So all in all, there is nobody that you can replace De Gea with, so it has to be De Gea for me.
I think 100% that was pretty much where we were with it. So let's show you this rather well. Oh, hello, Dan's here. Let's just point this one out. What's he just thrown him? Couldn't make it tonight. 4G in Spain is poor, but he's dropped into Celis. Maguire is amazing.
Absolutely.
Clearly, Maguire made your first 11 down. We know that. And can't wait to watch the show back when I land. We can't wait for you to be back next week. And of course, all goalies do make mistakes. Jennifer, you're quite right. It comes with a job. And we know that they are obviously much more noticeable when you are a goalkeeper. So in true All for United fashion, let's show off what we're doing today. So there we go. We've all been put down the side. And this is our formation, which pretty much mirrors what we see Erik ten Hag do week in, week out. And we will put into the goalie position David De Gea. So that was quite easy. We kind of knew that was going to happen. But let's have a little look at the poll, because we had quite a few people voting over the course of the last week and a half. It was interesting. For David De Gea, 57% said keep, 41% said sell. There were 3% that said loan, which I thought was an interesting situation. But it seems like most people interested in keeping him, but it was a very, very, very close run thing. Whereas Dean Henderson, 74% said sell. Tom Heaton, 60% said sell. And 68% said to sell Jack Butland. Are we in a situation, boys, where looking to next season, we're basically saying we don't have confidence in any of our goalkeepers?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Look, De Gea is likely to be a number 2, which is why I would suggest the contract situation is dragging a little bit. I don't think it's got anything to do with the ownership. I think if United can get hold of Costa or Raya or Minen from AC Milan, I think those are the preferred options, and you would take them, which means that De Gea will go in as a 2. Butland's already gone anyway. He's gone to Rangers, signed a 4-year contract. Tom Heaton you should keep. You need that experience. He's a great third choice, and if we have De Gea in this vying for a starting position with somebody like Raya or Costa, or maybe even Mannion from Milan, I think that's ideal. So yes, I can see why people would sell De Gea. Henderson, you've got to sell because you're going to get 20 million out of Forest for him. That's a bit of a no-brainer for us. So I think De Gea will be wearing the colours again next season in some capacity.
Is that kind of where you feel, John? I mean, surely at some point there's going to have to be at least a backup goalkeeper brought in.
Yeah, or certainly goalkeeper that will push De Gea. I do think I'm of the opinion that now I do love De Gea. I think he's been a fantastic servant for the club. I think to get to next level, if he had an open checkbook, Ten Hag, I'm sure he would get a new goalkeeper in. But I think maybe because there's a lack of money, and perhaps there's bigger priorities from Ten Hag's point of view, maybe that's why we'll get him sign a new contract. But I do think we need a second choice goalkeeper and one that might potentially, push the hair on to, prove or, challenge for the first team spot, because I do think eventually within, if it's not this summer, maybe next summer, eventually you're going to have to replace David De Gea. And for me, he's been a fantastic servant, but I think if Ten Hag wants to achieve the football he wants to achieve, he's going to have to get a new goalkeeper and that. So for me, I've said it time and time again, I think his distribution isn't great, but for me, it's always his commanding, which has been a big issue. I don't think he's ever been particularly good at commanding his area, and that's for me what the big weakness is. So for me, I will look at a new goalkeeper, but I think he will stay this summer for at least another year.
Fair points, one and all. Well, the next place that we looked at was the fullbacks and wing-back situation. So let's take a look there. Left back and right back. John, who did you go for in your positionings?
For right back, I went for Wan-Bissaka. I think that's probably the one position where you might get a bit of a 50-50 split, maybe 60-40, something, because obviously pre-World Cup and post-World Cup, there was a big difference. Delo was doing very well before the World Cup, and he looked like he was getting a place, and Wan-Bissaka looked like he was a goner. Then after the World Cup, Delo's obviously struggled with injury, but I think Wan-Bissaka has improved. I'm not saying it's perfect by any means, but he has shown great battle, and I don't think there's much argument that Wan-Bissaka is the better defensive right back. So for me, I think overall, where we've seen the most improvement this season has been post World Cup, and that's why I will probably go with Wan-Bissaka. But I do think pre World Cup there is an argument for Delo.
Fair point. Right back, is that where you would go, Stu? Have you gone for Wan-Bissaka or did you go for Dalot?
No, Wan-Bissaka's been a no-brainer for me since he joined the club. Yes, he had a rough patch, but he's always been our best right back, and now he's just added to his game. And I think you'll see again from the summer months onwards, he's got some time off now to work on his game, work on his positional play moving forward. But as a right back, there's nobody better in the country. Trent Alexander can't hold a light to him as a defender, nor can John Stones. Nor can Kyle Walker as a defender. But going forward, he's behind those. Look, modern day football, all this goalkeeper's got to be able to play out from the back, got to use the wing backs. It's all bullshit. It's all bollocks. Nothing changes in terms of you've got to get from your goal to the opposition goal, period. Nothing changes just because you go from your goalkeeper plays out from the back, plays it to his fullback, plays it to his midfield. I've been doing that for years, absolutely years. This is all rubbish. You've got to, Eric Ten Hag wants to play from the back. It's been done for years, absolutely years. And so a fullback's primary role is to defend. That is it, period. And that's what he does best. So
on that point, there was a stat that came out. We know you love a stat. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, 92% in terms of the top dribblers tackled. So, in other words, the amount of times he stopped an attacker running at them, 92%. That's the best in Europe.
And so, Dalot is good going forward. Not great going back. His positional sense is rubbish going back. And that's why Wan-Bissaka's kept him out the side since he's been back. So, for me, concentrate on your primary job first, which is what he does. And he does it better than any other fullback in the country. So for me, no brainer, Wambinho, as I like to call him.
Well, there we go. We will put him in. And meanwhile, John, you can put the case forward for what I would assume would be either Tyrell Malacia or Luke Shaw.
Yeah, I think it's got to be Luke Shaw, hasn't it? I think it was interesting because he was one player who we had big question marks over after last season. And initially, he didn't have a great start to this season, first couple of games. And that I remember that I think it was after the Brentford game of last year, became the main starter at left back for about half a dozen games or something. And I think he did well during that period. And I think Malacia did okay in certain games. Obviously, the Old Trafford City game in January, I think he played well when Luke Shaw went in at centre half. Having said that, though, I do think Luke Shaw's had a very good season, and I think we remember a couple of years back that Shaw and Rashford had a very good combination down the left, and that during the COVID season. So for me, it was nice to see that was rediscovered to some degree, and I think Luke Shaw, while he hasn't played well every single game, I do think he there's been a re-emergence of some kind. He's obviously signed a new contract, so for me, yeah, I will go with Luke Shaw.
Stu, you going for Luke as well?
Yeah, again, look, he's a bit of a no-brainer, but I think we're weak at left back anyway. Periods, Shaw and Malacia, and John's analysis was absolutely perfect on both, actually, on the way that Malacia took his chance, and then he kind of started to believe his own press, like players do occasionally. And, Shaw was had a poor summer, clearly, and obviously had a poor start to the season. Absolutely, he came back and he showed his versatility. There's absolutely no two ways about it. Jennifer's right. There is proven pedigree there, but I think we're weak at left back. But Shaw gets it for me.
Spot on. Well, there we go then. So that was exactly what most people tended to think as well on our polls. When we did the wing-back, full-back poll, Wan-Bissaka, 92% of people said keep. So clearly a lot of love for Aaron. Same for Diego, although he was 78%. Luke Shaw, 94%. And Malacia, 83%. The interesting thing was on the extras. In other words, Alex Telles and Brandon Williams, both of whom were overwhelmingly chosen to sell. Would both of you agree with that? Are these two players that in order for us to make room to get more depth potentially, are these two players that we'll need to move on?
Yeah, they've got to go. Yeah, 100%.
There you go. Love it. Short and sweet. Perfect.
That was, yeah. It was an easy one.
Well, the good news is all three of us have agreed so far. Hence, I haven't even put my opinions forward. Didn't need to. You've all said exactly what I thought you might. I would assume our centre-back pairings are probably going to be incredibly similar as well. But we shall see. John Commode, which two people did you choose to put in the centre-back positions?
Well, I decided on Varane and Martinez because I think that was the more solid partnership. I think Martinez has been probably the most impressive centre-half this season. Obviously, he was new to the league, and obviously there were questions about his height, which was obviously ridiculous, but he's added greatly to our back four, and I think he has been the big miss the past about 6 weeks of the season, whatever it was, and hopefully he will be back, if not at the start next season, not long after. I think there's no argument about that, and I think Varane has been quite solid. Obviously, he's been a bit injured, but he has been managed a little bit better this season compared to last year. I do think he has had a solid season, but you can't ignore the last few weeks' season. Lindelof did a very good job there, so you could put him in contention. And Maguire, I think he did okay when he played, but the problem is he only played, I don't know how many games he played, but probably no more than a third of United's games this season. So for me, Varane and Martinez for me, but there is possible contender for Lindelof based on how he played the last 6 weeks of the season.
Stu, would you go along with that?
Look, I'm torn on this one. I mean, Martinez is a shoe-in.
Well, let's write him in then because he was in on mine as well, and you can have a discussion about what you're thinking for the other centre back.
But I'm leaning towards Lindelof for me. And people are going to look. You have a problem with Varane. Fans have an issue with Varane. When you start calling a player Champions League Varane, you can't see beyond anything else than what he did at Real Madrid. So, and that's always an issue when you look at a footballer. Now, Johnny K will remember my reservations of Rafael Varane because I got absolutely vilified for it. And unfortunately, I was proven right, wasn't I, John? In season 1, I said, here we go again. It has to be Varane. There's nothing to really back it up. Everyone just says it has to be Varane. But you've got to look at the different types of defending. I could give you in season 1 12 goals that he actually gave away, and Johnny will know this because I went through them and I articulated why he gave them away and what he should have done about it. He has been better this season. There's absolutely no two ways about it, and he has made a huge difference this season. But his injury record has been poor yet again. And as a centre half partnership and as a centre half pairing, you have to have stability. And the Iceman very rarely gets injured. He is stable. So he's not as quick as Varane before anyone has a pop at me, but he's equally as good positionally. He's better aerially, I would say, although Maguire is better aerially than all of them. And he does complement, or would complement Martinez, but we didn't see it. We hadn't seen the Martinez-Lindelof partnership. So this is why everyone says it has to be Varane, Champions League Varane. But you need to think further around, because a partnership, an understanding, a willingness to work together as a unit sometimes outweighs maybe a better footballer when you're a centre half. So, I would go Lindelof personally for me. I know Varane will get the nod, but it would be Lindelof for me and Martinez.
I think that's a good argument. That's why I was umming and ahhing a bit with Lindelof, because we did do a show about somewhere 8 weeks ago, I think, and we've said pick one player who have an important end to the season. I said Lindelof, and because I think because at that time Varane and Martinez were both injured. It was just after this Sevilla game, so for me, I went with him because he's a very good squad player. He's not going to be the world's best player and that, but I think he's the best person to do a job in centre half, because we know Martinez is our best centre half as an all-round defender. He's brilliant at passing. He loves to tackle. He loves to battle, and considering he's pretty good in the air as well. So I think Lindelof is good as a partner. He needs a solid partner next to him. I think perhaps that's what Varane needs as well. I remember
Absolutely.
when you used to say, Stu, that he was the aggressor. Ramos used to be the aggressor. All that. I remember Varane's era was, I think, Rio Ferdinand, wasn't it? Now, if you think back to Vidic and Ferdinand, Vidic was very much the aggressor, whereas Ferdinand used to be the one that stood off kind of thing. And I think, but make a tackle when he needed to make a tackle. And I think that's what Varane is. Whereas Martinez, he does need someone aggressive to sit alongside him. That's why I think Varane has been a bit best this season. That's why I would personally go with Varane.
No, he has been good, and Varane's, in many ways is going to be the choice. And I knew Varane was going to be the choice. I knew he was, but for me, Lindelof, I think is and look. Let me just ask you one final question before we wrap up on this, because I know Barry goes with Varane, and I get that. Why are we so interested in Kim Young-min if Varane is our answer? Because if we sign this Kim Young-min, he's coming straight into the side, isn't
he? Yeah.
It's a very interesting point you make, Stu. Very interesting. I mean, I've listened intently to what you. But I mean, I've written down my 11, but my 11 is very much open to being changed by either of you if you convince me well enough. I'm nothing if not fickle in that respect, and it's a really good argument within which you just put in there. I also thought I'd have a look at our tweets and see what the fans thought, and then realise we didn't even put one out there for Victor Lindelof. So that was
all day long, and Johnny knows that. You know that, Johnny K. Varane will win it all day long in the fan base. He will.
But whilst I would, and on my paper I have got Varane written down, World Cup winner, all that sort of jazz as well. I think you make a great point. But that to me says we've got 3 centre backs, and you say why would we be interested in this Young Min? Well, this could be why. Because we've only got 3 working on the theory that Harry Maguire is probably going to leave for his own sanity.
No, wholly agree. And I think Harry Maguire needs to leave for his own sanity, if I'm being honest. He'll just get vilified by the fan base next season, so he doesn't need to be here.
Yeah.
My point wasn't that we've only got 3 centre halves, Barry. It's that this kid is going to start. This Korean kid, this Lazio centre half, if he comes, will start.
Mm-hmm.
Going to be Martinez. That's your victim. It's going to be Rafael Varane, I would guess. That's your victim.
No, absolutely. But as Jennifer's put here, as all good squads will have, you want 2 per position, capable to fit in seamlessly, and that would put us in that position, wouldn't it? If you were looking at
that's not one debating.
You could pick and choose then, couldn't you, between Martinez, Varane, Lindelof, and Young Min?
I'm not debating that. That's not. I've never debated that. What I'm saying is that the fan base, or my whole point is based on that the fan base will just migrate directly to Varane, and they'll pull him in like plankton through a blue whale. That's what they will do, because he's the one that everybody seems to love without actually watching the game. And when you make a signing of 40-50 million, it doesn't really matter. There's attributes that Erik ten Hag thinks that we don't have right now that this kid will bring us. That's the key. So it's not about squad depth for me. It's not about squad building. I get all that. I've been in football for donkey's years. I know how that side works. I'm just saying it's not always the golden ticket you buy. Sometimes you buy bronze. And look, let me just clarify this quickly, and John will understand my point. I'm not saying Wolves were brilliant defending when Conor Cody was in that team, but they're a lot better with him than without him. Max Coleman, without Conor Cody by his side, has been awful this season. But the season before, he was one of the best centre-halves. He was linked with England at one point. You've just got to look at the wider picture. But look, I accept and I agree. Varane will get him, but I think Lindelof would be a better partner for.
There we go. It's a fair point, and like we say, it takes us through to look into next season as we have been doing. Pretty much everybody agreed with us. They all thought Harry should go 89%. Rafa and Martinez were 96 and 100%. That's 100% of people said keep Martinez. So I would argue he's our number 1, and I think I would hope we'd all kind of agree with that at the moment. With the way he performed this season. Interestingly enough, Alvaro Fernandez and Teden Mengi both were down to loan. Eric Bailly, another name that obviously doesn't get mentioned much because he's not with us at the minute, and also Axel Twanzebe, both were put down for sell. Is that something you again would agree with? Just a couple of people that just need to be able to move on with their careers?
100%.
Yeah, well, Swansea about. I mean, what I'm disagreeing about that is, hasn't Menga been around for a few years? No,
not really. No, he's a couple of years behind.
He's been on loan and all that, hasn't he? So
he's pretty good, Menga. He's
right.
all right. I'd loan him, and definitely you'd loan Fernandez. Yeah,
fair enough.
He's all right, Menga. He's decent. But as for the rest,
Did he go on loan this season?
Yeah, he's out. No, I think he stayed. I think he's been playing under 23s. He might have gone on loan. Benny would know.
Fair enough.
Yeah, he's only 21 years old. So we shall see whereabouts that young man goes. But I did find it interesting, and I'll just throw this one out there because we're talking about a defence at the moment. Just a little point that came up. There was only 43 goals scored against us in the Premier League, which was the third sternest, according to the United app, with equal with Arsenal, and only just behind City and Newcastle United. In previous years, we'd conceded 57 goals in 21-22. So it shows that whichever way we go, whether we put Varane, whether we put Martinez, whether we put Lindelof, the defence has improved this season within the Premier League. Certainly has. It's getting our top.
Yeah.
So, with that in mind, let's take a little look at the two just ahead. Of course, there is always the potential that one of these two could potentially move, depending on how you're feeling. But generally, he tended to play almost like a double pivot on occasion. But again, it depends on how you're building your team. So how did you build your team, Mr. Johnny K? Who have you put in as your two centre mids?
Well, I decided on Casemiro and Eriksen in the end. I mean, Casemiro, Martinez, he's a shoe-in, isn't he? So, it's between him and Martinez for the best sign-out, because Casemiro personally was my player of the year, so I think he's a definite shoe-in. I've gone with Eriksen. I think he played well early on in the season. I don't think he was quite the same when he came back from his injury, and that he looked a bit sluggish. I wouldn't start him in like big games away from home like Liverpool or City or somewhere like that, because I think we'll be outrunning the midfield if we were to play him. That's why at times I thought Fred played well when he was in midfield for certain games, like both City games, Old Trafford in January, and obviously she mentioned that the final, he did keep De Bruyne quiet. So for me, he's good for certain things and that. So he's a consideration. But I thought Eriksen looked better distribution-wise and getting the ball forwards, particularly in the home games when he plays. So for me, I will go for Eriksen alongside him.
Okay. Stu, who did you go for?
Yeah, I picked Casemiro and Eriksen. Casemiro brought us that calmness, didn't he, that we've been needing for a long, long time. And Eriksen brought us that vision that we've been missing also for a long, long time. And you had Fred McTominay. So look, you can write Eriksen's season off from his injury return, but it was almost impossible to come back to that kind of intensity when you were injured for 3 or 4 months that he was. You cannot. I mean, I know people would dig Eriksen out defensively, but that's what you got defense for, and that's what you got a goalkeeper for, and that's what you have Casemiro for. There should be enough there alongside a couple of wide men to come back and help. So for me, it's a bit of a no-brainer. It was Casemiro and Eriksen.
My big question to you both on this one, because I also went Casemiro and Eriksen. When we put the tweets out, I've always considered Eriksen to be more of an attacking midfielder than a defensive midfielder.
Yes.
Where would you have put Eriksen? Because as you can see, I've got him right next to Casemiro. Would you put him up higher, nearer the number 10?
Yeah. The beauty of Eriksen, Fernandes, and because Bruno, we all know is going to go in as a 10. So let's be clear about that. We all know that.
You never know; it could be Woot.
Yeah, and Casa is that they can operate as a trio beautifully, and they can. You don't pivot with those things. You don't need to pivot because when you look at the way that Caicedo and McAllister played for Brighton, they were very modular, the way that they swam along like fishes, played together, but if one went forward, one stood, and vice versa. Now, Casemiro, Eriksen and Bruno have got the ability to train to play as a circle, And that's when we were at our pomp in mid-season. That's how they were playing. Casemiro would start the play, and he'd push up 10 yards, have a look about what's going on, ready to receive. Eriksen, Bruno would be just off to his left and his right, and that's how we were breaking teams down better. As soon as Casemiro was out of the equation, Eriksen was out of the equation, we lost all of that momentum. We lost that flexibility and that inability to really flummox the opposition, because at one point during games, people didn't know who was going to pick up who. And it's a nightmare if you're a midfielder or a defender and you've got a different person, within your vicinity all the time. And that's why those three are a shoo-in, an absolute shoo-in. You can make arguments for Fred, you can make arguments for Sabitzer, you can make arguments for McTominay, but then they can't fit into that trio of excellence that those three offer us.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Obviously, Twitter agreed. We had Zidane Iqbal and Kobe Manu out for loan. Interestingly, though, Sabitzer 60% said sell. Scott McTominay 64% said sell. And 52% said to sell Fred. It was incredibly tight, probably the tightest of all of the polls that we did run. Obviously, Casemiro was a keep with 76% as well. And Eriksen, as we mentioned, him was 81% for a keep as well. You mentioned there, I mean, about Fred and McTominay. John, what do you see for the future of McFred? Because they've been an integral part of our midfield now for a few seasons. What's your thoughts going to be? What should Erik ten Hag do with them?
I personally look at strength, and I think unfortunately I would sell McTominay. I do like McTominay. I think he's a good squad player, but I think it's one of those things where you can probably get around 25 million for him. Newcastle have interested, maybe West Ham or someone. I think he's, if you're looking to raise funds, that's one player where you can look at and think we can raise a bit of money there, and it'll be instant money where we can use it, kind of thing. Fred is out contract in a year, but I think he's done enough just to stay another year and that. So for me, I would personally keep him. So yeah, I'd let McTominay go, but keep Fred.
Fair enough. Anything you want to add on that, Stu, or shall we move on to the obvious number 10 that you were talking about?
No, look, I'd half inch out Fred and McTominay tomorrow, but you can't do it because you're just going to leave yourself so open. I would maybe, if we could get Sabitzer for less than 20 million, I'd buy Sabitzer because I think he'd be a great addition as a squad player. I think he showed little bits on what he can get, but quite frankly, I'd dismiss Fred, I'd dismiss McTominay, and I'd bring in Rabiot on a free.
Would either of you take Mason Mount? Just yes or no?
Not for me.
I would.
I can see the benefits.
I can see he'd be a good. I think we need someone else alongside him. Like I would personally like whether it's Rice or Caicedo. I think you could possibly get someone else in, but I don't think the funds.
Rabiot for us would tear it up.
Yeah,
Rabiot would tear it up.
Absolutely
tear it up, really.
So I think that, but yeah, I think Mount would be an improvement on Fred and McTominay. Yeah, he has had a bad season, but obviously some players had bad season for us last season, done well this season. I wouldn't hold that against him. Plus, he's a Champions League winner, so and he was integral in that Chelsea team. So for me, he's the type of manager he's the type of player where I think he's a good squad player or a good player to start. But I think Ten Hag with coach and all that will probably make him a very good player. So yes, I will take him.
Very good. Okay, then. Are we all going to say then number 10, Bruno Fernandes? Stu's already said it's a no-brainer. John, did you go Bruno in the 10?
Yeah, picks itself, yeah.
So there we go. I don't think we really need to wax lyrical about Bruno. We know what he brings to the team, and he has been pretty amazing throughout. So good job, Bruno. And with regards to the rest of the central midfielders that we were talking about, certainly in terms of the attacking ones, Some names that haven't been mentioned. Obviously, Hannibal, he was put down as a loan. However, the one that was really interesting for me was, Ahmad, of course, was down to keep. Pellistri, lots of people think we should loan him. The big sale, though, that everyone's talking about, Donny van de Beek. Just very quickly, lads, do any of you see any future for Donny van de Beek at this club going on beyond
I think for him, he's in the Maguire situation. He needs to go for his own mental health, I would imagine. But I'd keep him. I'd keep him. We haven't seen anywhere near the best of Donny van de Beek. I would keep him. But I think he will. I think he should go. And I think he probably will go.
I was bringing something else in. I was listening to an interview, a podcast with Andy Mitten, who is obviously one of the best, in my opinion, one of the most reliable journalists going for United's news all day. He writes for United's Freestand and gets inside information. Interestingly, he said that Van der Beek was a panic signing, and he asked someone I hope in the club what were their plans for Donny van der Beek around 2 to 3 weeks after we signed him, and they weren't sure. So and that's basically, it's got all gone downhill since then. So for me, it was a panic buy, and I think that he's obviously had that really bad injury in January. It looks like he's on the mend, thankfully, but I think for his own career and that, he has to go, I think. And a career which promised so much.
Well, you'd hope if anybody could bring the best out of Donny van der Beek, you would hope, though, that's Ten Hag.
In a strange twist of fate, he needed that injury, did Donny van der Beek. He needed that. Maguire needed an injury. Sometimes you've got to take yourself away, rehabilitate yourself. You know, when you're rehabilitating from an injury, you're rehabilitating your injury itself, your muscle or your broken leg, or whatever, your ankle, but you're actually rehabilitating yourself as a person, as a human being. And especially when you're out for a long time and you struggle like the likes of Donny van der Beek, Harry Maguire, and you need to complete reset. And I think Donny van der Beek has had that complete reset now. He's worked really, really hard from information I've had, from people that I know, journalist-wise. And I think, yes, I think he's got two choices. But if he stays, he's got to make it pay. So, but
that's the thing, isn't it? That's the thing. Even if he does get a sort of a clean slate to begin with, it probably won't take that many poor performances before the same people jump on him again.
Yeah, maybe a loan back to Ajax might just do the job for him. Yeah, you never know.
You never know. Right, let's take a look at. I was going to look at the wings, but actually, I kind of want to just ask what people are putting in the 9. So I'm going to assume we've all got the same person, but I could be wrong.
It's an easy one for me. The big man.
Vegas.
Straight in at 9.
He's gone Voot. John, who have you gone for?
Well, I've done something I didn't want to do because I didn't trust the main two. I've actually, and I want to play him in another position, I've actually gone Rashford because I don't think Martial's been very dependable injury-wise. That did a job first couple of months and that, but and I think in fairness to Rashford, he's not out number 9, but he has got a bit better at those poacher goals this season. I think at times when he has gone to the number 9, he has scored a few goals this season. So for me, I think I would go with him personally. So it's not particularly something I wanted to do. I prefer him on the left, but I think all the options, I will probably go with him.
Vegas gets it for me because Sancho doesn't get into my starting 11.
I think that's just dropped out. So
Sancho doesn't get into my starting 11, so it has to be Vegas for me, which means if Rashford left, Anthony.
I think if Martial was not injured so often, I would
You
probably
can't
go
pick
with
him.
him.
You can't pick him,
But,
John.
but he's,
You can't pick him.
I
And
know,
can you necessarily pick pick Sancho? I don't think you can.
no. And this is where I was messing around. I don't like to mess around with the team and that, but I think it's interesting. I mean, I don't know how long Barry's going to be gone for, but
Yeah,
I
it's
think in
just
terms of that, I think in terms of like the general front, I think we'd both put Anthony on the right, wouldn't we?
I mean, we've got no forwards, and I've been speaking about this for a long time. We've got no number 9, you know, and the reason I gone Vegas is because what he allowed, and we scored most of our goals when Vegas was playing up top because he created the space in and around, you know, allowed Rashford, allowed Anthony that extra space to get him behind because they were too busy trying to mark Vegas. When Vegas was out the team, there's no point bringing him on for 20 minutes because that's not what he was about when he was out the team. We weren't creating those chances. We weren't scoring goals. And so for me, I understand the reasoning for Rashford
Yeah,
up top, but that means,
yeah.
John, you've got to put Sancho in your starting 11. And can you hand
No,
on...
I wouldn't put Sancho in.
That's what I mean. So can you hand on heart really say, so which means you're going to go, well, so by logic then it's Garnacho, Rashford and Anthony for you.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I've gone with. I know, again, it is something that I didn't necessarily want to go with. I would have ideally wanted to put Rashford on the left and Martial up front. But I just think that because he was injured and all that, I think, like I say, Rashford has played at number 9 at times this season and
He
scored
has. He's
a
just not
few
clinical.
goals.
He's not
I know
clinical.
it's not his best position, so for me, that's
No.
why I would go Rashford. Plus, I think Garnacho has had a good season
He
and all
has. But
that. So,
it doesn't make my
yeah,
starting 11. I
no,
get it. He doesn't make my starting 11. So,
yeah,
it's
exactly.
Vegas for me. It's Vegas for me anyway at 9.
Yeah.
That's my 9.
I mean, what a conversation that turned out to be.
Yeah,
And
No issue with
I'm
Rashford at 9, by the
disappointed I
way.
missed some of it. But I think that does mean that we are going to have potentially our biggest debate as to whereabouts we place these players. I also went for Anthony and for Rashford. Anthony on the right, Rashford at the 9. I was having an R in between Sancho and Garnacho, with probably leaning more towards Garnacho. What was your whole front 3, Stu?
So Rashford left, Veghorst middle, and Anthony right. So
Okay,
why
we
did
all
I?
picked Anthony, yes?
Yeah. So why didn't I pick Garnacho? I didn't pick Garnacho because he's not a starter. That's the only reason I didn't pick him. He is, at this point in time in his career, he's a 20 to 25, 30-minute player. And so when he comes on, he's coming on against a tiring defence and he's absolutely energetic, enigmatic, directs. He's improving week on week on week and will be a huge player for Manchester United in the next 12 to 18 months. But and Johnny knows this, Johnny, because I only say this, pal, because you know football. So I feel comfortable in saying this. Your unwillingness to play Vegas at 9 is forcing your hand with Rashford through the middle and Garnacho stroke Sancho on the left, because as much as I agree that Garnacho has been great, you know
yeah, I
football
get
too
that.
much to know that he's not a starter. You know football too well to know he's not a starter.
Yeah, but I think also that, but it's the team of the season, and for me, Van Ghost is. I think I do get your point with perhaps score more goals as a team and that, but for me, I think that period
100%.
between January and March, that's when he did work for us. From April onwards, I don't
He
think it
changed the
was
way we
quite the
played.
same in that. So
He
for me,
changed the way
that's
he played, didn't he? Ten Hag changed the way he
yeah.
played, and
So I think there was an argument. That's why I'm looking at it as a whole the course season. I think Garnacho, I do agree, is better as an impact sub.
mm,
But for me, I just think that um, he's impacted the season more that's why for me that's why I lean towards Rashford, Upton, Garnacho, and that. But I do take your point and that, and I think it's a hard one because I would like to put Martial and Rashford, but Martial he's just not reliable. So for me, if he was, then I would pick Martial, but he just kept getting injured too often.
It was one of those really interesting ones.
I'll say your point.
I know you do. Yeah, I know you do. Yeah.
I was thinking about, like, say, the Sancho Garnacho situation. Martial was never going to come anywhere near it this season. Again, it's one of those where you're trying not to think about previous seasons or anything like that. You're just trying to think about this season. It's team of the season. So it's trying to think about who had the most impact. And so for me, that was why I was going Rashford, and I was probably going to lean more towards Garnacho in terms of impact because, yes, it's only been 20, 30-minute blocks. But in those 20, 30 minutes, he's had more impact on the games.
I've got no issue with that. But when you're talking about impact, look how many goals we haven't scored since Weghorst's been outside.
Rashford hasn't scored as many.
Agreed. But I was just making a point. It's not an argument. It was just a point that since he stopped playing, we scored less goals.
The irony is, agreed, but even without him, if you put him in there, we're talking about a guy who scored 2 goals being on a number 9 position, and that feels...
And I've got no issue with that as well.
That feels a little bit depressing.
That's equally his thing. But football's about your contribution to the team when you're on that pitch. Whether you're on that pitch for 50 minutes, 60 minutes, 70 minutes. And John knows I gave Garnacho man of the match and he came on for 10 minutes once. And that was down on his impact. That's what he did.
That was the City game, wasn't it?
That's right. That's how he impacted the game. You can't give him man of the match. Yes, I can, because he impacted that game. It's an irrelevance whether you play 90 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. Martial's come on. I can't remember which game he came on, and he impacted it. He only played 20 minutes, and he impacted the game. We won the game. And I gave Martial man of the match for that alone. I get the Garnacho thing, and I've got absolutely no problem with Garnacho going in team of the season and Weghorst not coming out team of the season. But my reasons are for that. I think his impact is a lot greater. I think if Weghorst has scored 8 goals, he's a shoo-in for 9. There you go.
I'd agree. I think if he'd have scored more, you'd be right. And I think that is what ultimately led to it. When you look at, again, the keep loan sales that we put out, Garnacho got 98% keep. Shoretire was to loan. Elanga, 74% said sell so far. Sancho, 67% saying keep. Weghorst, 91% of people saying sell. Anthony, 96% keep. And Rashford, 97%.
Weghorst was always going to get the boot because football is different. Okay, football doesn't revolve around your little controller you've got in your hand. Where Weghorst, I'll get Weghorst way. He scored 90 goals for me on FIFA this week. Fuck off. I knew I would not win the Weghorst battle. I knew that before we came on. I knew it wasn't going to happen. But it's not all about winning or losing this. This is just about opinions. And football's about opinions. And I've got absolutely no issue with Garnacho. But I think we all know on this panel, he's not a starter, but he has impacted when he's come on. And I get that. He is a Burnley man, yes. I get that. So I've got no issue with Anthony, Garnacho and Rashford.
Listen, I've put them down there, but what I'm actually going to do is when we tweet out this team of the season, I'm going to tweet out 2 because I think we've pretty much agreed on 9 of the 11 places, 10 really, because we've all said Rashford's playing. It really is just a case of whether or not Rashford should be on the left or whether Rashford should be in the centre. So I will put one with Rashford on the left and one with Voot at the front. And this one that you see in front of you. And then we'll see. Let the people decide, because ultimately that's what it's about. That's why we're here. So there we go. The last question comes around the controversial tweet, should we say. And that was, how we feel about Ten Hag, what he's done this season. It was interesting. There was like more engagement, obviously, when you just put in a poll that asked people whether or not they think Ten Hag should be in or Ten Hag should be out. When you start asking people to give you your opinions, they don't seem to want to tweet those out quite as much using words and things like that, which is hence why we used polls. But don't worry, I've learnt my lesson on that one. So maybe you two guys can help me. I'm going to assume we are all 100% Ten Hag in, as we have been for the entirety of this season. But the real question was, how do you rate your season? Because the one person that did tweet into us did actually say, in terms of the season, based on where we were last season, it's an 8 out of 10. But based on Manchester United as a whole and our history, it's a 6 out of 10. So whereabouts would you guys put it? What sort of a season would you say we've had with Ten Hag at the helm?
Well, I personally, when I made my predictions at the start of the season, I said we got to try and get in the top 4 of Champions League football at the earliest. And if we can win a trophy as a bonus, because last season I think it was 5 years without winning a trophy. So for me, that's and he has achieved that, and I think he's gone a bit above that. I wouldn't have thought we'd get to 2 finals. I wouldn't think that we'd be so competitive and all that. And I think the way we've gone about our business, our home form's been a massive improvement. It's our best home form post Fergie, I would argue. You know, I think we beat all the top 6 teams all at home this season, which is a big improvement for Sam since 2010-11, I think, and only losing 1 at home in the league. And you know, we did have a couple of draws now, which we perhaps should have won, but overall, we got top 4 comfortably in the end, and winning the cup and getting to another final. Okay, it's a bit disappointing. Unfortunately, hopefully they don't, but if City do, and treble will be sad in that regard. We didn't win last week, but overall, have the objectives for this season been achieved very much so, and I think if anything we might be a bit further along than what we perhaps expected at the start of the season. Muted.
I feel like that's fair. Would you go along with that, Stu?
Yeah, I'd like to touch on what the guy on Twitter said. I mean, our history is 6 out of 10. Does he not know anything about our history? Has he not seen the trajectory of Manchester United since its inception? You know, our most decorated period was under Sir Alex Ferguson. You know, there was a period before Sir Alex Ferguson.
Was there?
Yeah, well, exactly. That's the thing. Check our history. And we weren't brilliant, you know, before Fergie. You know, Sir Matt Busby, we all know, was a genius with the team. But I think we've only had 3. Is it 3 managers, John, that have actually won the league?
Yeah.
3 managers, you know, out of a whole.
Obviously, if it wasn't for Munich, we would have won a lot more.
Yeah, but out of our whole history, we've only had 3 managers lifted the Premier League or the League Division 1. So, you know, 6 out of 10 because of our history. I don't buy that. I just don't buy it. It's been an 8 out of 10 performance, really, because you've got to compare it on last season, not in the 1990s and the 2000s or the 50s or the 1900s. You know, you have to look at it from last season, and it is a huge improvement on last season. Ollie before took us to the promised land, you know, in getting to second in the Premier League. Jose Mourinho 2 seasons before, said it was his best ever achievement in English football. Our history didn't start with Sir Alex Ferguson. You know, you've got to understand this. Our trajectory is always up and down. It's like football.
And I think you made the point also, Stu, that 3 managers in our history have only ever won the league. I think it's only about 7 or 8. I think Ten Hag's the 8th manager in our history to have ever won a trophy.
Yeah, that's right.
As well, you know, so I think because I think Tommy Dock was the first one to win a trophy but not win the league.
The Dock was.
Van Gaal won the FA Cup, Mourinho, and now Ten Hag. So yeah, when you think of people, if you knew your history, we've had so many managers. We have probably more managers that didn't win anything than what I've won.
We have,
for me, if you go back pre-Busby and all, and in fact a couple of managers after Busby as well. So for me, it's a big improvement. And that's the other thing. He's the only manager. I think him and Mourinho are the only two managers we've had who've won something their first season.
Yeah,
Ferguson's took 3 years. I think Busby took 2 or 3. And they, even Fergie and Busby, hopefully we do win the league under Ten Hag, but I think Busby and Fergie didn't win the league until their 7th season either. So, it's crazy.
Yeah,
so for me, good first season. I think we had to break the trophy duck at some point because it had been
I said
6 years. So
I said, and I went on record that said that if we got 10 straight wins, it would take us somewhere. And it has. It's taken us to European semi-final, an FA Cup final, a Carabao Cup final, which we won, and 3rd in the Premier League.
I think also,
when you looked at some of the numbers that were actually put out for him, he reached 20 wins, faster than any other manager in Manchester United's history. We had the game where we had 21 shots in the first half against Everton at Old Trafford, which was a record for any team since Opta began. The 27 home victories. He's only the 3rd Dutch manager to finish in the top 10.
That's a joint most number of home wins in a season with
correct
3 that. So
saying
and 23 sub strikes as well.
Yeah. So saying 6 out of 10 in our history, it's poor.
A bit harsh, I would agree.
I think you can't ignore some of the negative. Like there have been some unspeakable performances which we don't need to go into. But I think we were going to lose the old game badly this season, and that's where I think he needs to improve. I wouldn't go over the top and say unbelievable season, but I'd probably give it a good solid 7 or.
I think it's an 8. I think it's an 8.
I've got to say, I do think it was an 8 out of 10.
I don't give big scores on anything, but I mean, you've got to hand it to the guy. Really.
Yeah, and I think I always manage the team with the World Cup. You can't ignore the World Cup in between. He hasn't got the team yet, and we managed to go deep in competitions this season, in every competition, and we won one. We got to final the other, and maybe we got a bit tired in the quarter-final against Sevilla, but imagine what we'll do when he does get the team he wants. I don't think, what City are going for. Hopefully they'll be us within a few years.
We've got a couple of stupid friendlies, haven't we, coming up at England? But ultimately, we should be fine.
We should be fine indeed. So there we go. Well, that's another show pretty much done. We'll just end with this one. Jennifer's put, what is it with ditching our managers? Skinner and ETH have done magic this season. And you know what? I think really that's what kicks off all of the issues. People seem to think that when you ask a question, you have got an agenda behind it. There was no agenda. We're not asking whether or not we're not saying we believe Erik ten Hag should be out, nor are we saying he should be in. We were simply asking the question, as all good people should be able to do. You should be able to ask a question. You should be able to get a response. And hopefully those responses are, as we've had today, filled with lots of reasoning and ideas behind it. Listen, I hope you've enjoyed the show. I hope you've enjoyed it with us here for All for United once again. Thanks again, Stu. Thanks again, John, for your time. The bad news, of course, is that Man City have scored. So we're all off now to go and pray for the next 20 minutes and hope Inter Milan can find an equaliser. But until that moment happens, we hope you have yourself a pleasant weekend and that you don't spend it down the pub. Really, really sad. Come on, Inter. See you soon.